Tomorrow on Home and Family, cookbook author Nancy McDermott is making a strawberry rhubarb pie. And Kim is here with luxurious gold-infused beauty.
She is a reporter, she is a mom, she's a two-time Emmy Award-winning news correspondent. She could be tough as nails when she wants to.
right.
But she's here with her new book. It's called The World is Awake. Please welcome Linsey Davis.
Welcome.
I wanted to say tough as nails because you have covered some really hard news in your career, which is such a break from doing a children's book.
Sure.
Right.
That's sweet and so brings up so many soft kind of concepts for kids. Why the break, and why did you want to do that?
I mean, you've kind of nailed it, really, in that I do the doom and gloom every day.
Yeah.
But it really isn't so much of a departure from what I do. I mean, day to day, I write and I tell stories. And so I just decided now that I'm a mom and I have an almost 4-year-old, he can't necessarily watch what I do day to day. I kind of have to shield him as we do as parents and protect him. There's Aiden. And, I don't want him to see the news stories that I'm covering. And so this was a way for me to give him a story and other toddlers a story that was uplifting and joyful.
Yeah.
And the subtitle of the book is A Celebration of Everyday Blessings, which was inspired by your son and a question he asked you. What was that question?
So when he was about 2, we were in the car, and out of nowhere, he asked me, "Mommy, does God open up the flowers?" And I loved it. I mean, at the same time, I found his curiosity really something to be celebrated and something that I wanted to kind of follow up and give him an answer in a really subtle, gentle, meaningful way about who God is and what he does, but really through nature. So there's really this idea that when kids step out of their door and they can just see and celebrate God's handiwork all around.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
You took in this book, and I love this idea. You should go, okay, I'm going to go to the book that has the best lessons ever, the Bible.
Right.
But then I'm going to add to that.
Well,
put my own spin on it.
I hope that there's kind of a double message. It's like when you go to see the movies, the animated movies, there's kind of that message for the adults, and there's that storyline for the kids. And I think that that's what I've tried to do, at least here, and hopefully we've accomplished that. But it's from Psalm 118:24. This is a day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And adults will recognize that.
Yeah.
But for kids, it's just very subtle. We changed it, to a butterfly floats through the sun in the shade. And so it's just then a subtle reflection reminder for adults who are reading and say, oh, okay, yeah, there's a little bit of scripture here. There's another reference that we have to, I think it was Luke, and Jesus was talking to the disciples maybe, and it said, if the people won't praise, then the rocks will cry out. So there's a line in there about how the rocks would sing if they could. And so there's just kind of this double messaging there for kids and for adults.
It's really beautiful. It's such a beautiful book. It's so
Thank
sweet.
you.
So can we just show some of these illustrations, because they're absolutely
they're beautiful.
And I'm so glad you got to choose who illustrated your book.
Yes.
But you said you wanted him to be realistic yet whimsical at the same time. What were you hoping to convey through the photos?
Whimsical was exactly the word that I said initially that I was looking for. Something that kids would recognize as the world around them, but at the same time kind of magical, right, and fun. And what I found, and you guys have young kids too, but for becoming a first-time parent, there are things that I think as adults that often we have the blinders and we stop seeing the beauty and the majesty all around us every day, right? And when you have a child, they're kind of grabbing at your hands and saying, hey, Mommy, look at that bunny rabbit, look at that rainbow. And you're seeing things with fresh eyes, and as if it's, it is for the first time for them. And things that often I think we stop really paying attention to. And so for me, now I get so excited to him. I say, Aiden, hey, look at that rainbow, look at that chipmunk, whatever it may be.
As you get to relearn everything.
Exactly.
The illustrations too, like I have a 1.5-year-old and another one on the way. But I feel like she would point to all the animals too and really get involved. What age group did you make the book for?
Yeah, so it's pretty much 8 and under. So obviously if you're under a certain, 3-year-old or whatever, I'm reading this to my son. And he's enjoying it. At least, he tells me he's enjoying it. I don't know if he's just kind of buttering me up at this point and placating yes, Mommy, this is my favorite book.
But it's time with Mommy, though. That's maybe what
But you know what? 8 and under, but I'm older than 8 just by a little bit. And I love it. I think it's for adults too, because again, it reopens your eyes to the world.
Hopefully it does have that messaging, and that parents are going to take this away as you are reading to your child at night. And that's kind of part of what we captured in the book too, is just kind of our daily ritual of getting in bed and reading those stories and saying our prayers and, snuggling up. And it's really a precious time for all of us as everybody here knows as parents.
So interesting. So I have 3 under 6. And you don't gasp like that. Wow. There they are. They're
You win the award, Ken.
But you know, so my husband and I are raising mixed race children, and it's difficult to find books out there that show them that they can read that aren't specifically about race. So how important was that aspect of it to you?
Well, certainly I wanted my son to be able to find a book where the child looked like him, you know, and he thinks, I mean, he's convinced
that is him.
Well,
it actually is.
Right.
His mom wrote it, so technically
it is him. Yeah.
But, you know, and he kind of goes back and forth between who that little girl is. You know, he decides if it's his cousin or whatever. But
future sister.
Yes, but when I was looking for books for him, I was having a difficult time finding kids who look like him. And then I thought that was just kind of anecdotal at first. And then as a correspondent, I started doing some research and found that more than 90% of the protagonists in children's picture books are white. Meanwhile, we have half of the kids in our country are not white.
And that's still?
That is still, that is 2018.
That's shocking.
And it is really surprising. And, you know, you could look at study after study. There was an essay that I found that I really loved that was about windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. And the concept is that you have to be able to have that window to see it peer into a world that may be unfamiliar for you as a child, a mirror to reflect who you are. Yeah. And if that window is to be really effective, it can serve as a sliding glass door to transport them into this other world.
How beautiful.
Wow.
It's really important. You know, kids look to books for self-affirmation.
Sure.
Yeah.
They look to books to find themselves. And additionally, you want children who are of all different kinds of races and colors and ethnicities to see that diversity, because it's not good for anybody to see just all one color, all one race.
Thank you.
Oh, I love that. I love that you read with him. I read with my son every single night, and I love the promoting reading with your kids. And my son actually asked me if God made the playground the other day. So I was like, yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
They stump you.
And so, but I'm sure he's learned so much from just that book, and he loves it, like you said, right?
I mean, more and more he gets into, you know, now asking even more questions. Like, we flew out here, and so he said, when I get on the plane, because he's asked me before, well, where is God? And, you know, sometimes you're stumped and you're like, well, he's all around, he's in heaven, you know. So he said, oh, well, we're going to be in the plane. Am I going to see God then in the clouds when we're in the plane, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think that the book has inspired more questions and more answers, and better yet, more conversations.
So it's a good way to answer some of those questions.
Yeah.
Did he make the playground? Well, let's read this book and let's talk about it.
Well, he did. He made the person who made the playground. He made it.
That's what I told
More information about The World is Awake by going to hallmarkchannel.com or drop by Linsey's website. The information is there on your screen. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me.
And since we're being kids, we're playing a game next.
Yes.
A very special edition, a spring fever edition of Rapid Fire Charades. Come on back.
Let's be kids. Come on.